Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're going to be talking about some pretty exciting stuff today, especially if you're into gaming at all. AMD just made a big splash with some news about their new graphics cards and their new architecture RDNA 4.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we've got their official reveal video, and we also found this really in-depth technical analysis too.
Right.
So basically, you can just listen to us, and you don't have to read all that stuff yourself. We'll break it all down for you.
Yeah, well, a lot of it's pretty technical, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's for sure.
But there's definitely some like super interesting stuff in there. And the coolest thing I think off the bat is just how AMD is going back to basics a little bit.
Okay.
You know, they're calling it a monolithic design for these new graphics cards.
Monolithic, huh? That sounds kind of intimidating.
Yeah, well, it kind of is, I guess. But think of it like this. Instead of having your gaming power like spread out across a bunch of different parts of the graphics card, it's all concentrated in one place now.
Okay.
So it's like a simpler but more powerful setup.
So it's like instead of having like 5 different teams of players, you just got one super team.
Exactly.
Like all the all-stars all together.
Yep, and that means everything runs way smoother and faster.
Okay. I like where this is going. So how much faster are we talking about?
Well, their top-of-the-line card, the RX 9070 XT, it's like a crazy 40% faster than the last generation.
Whoa, 40%. That's huge.
Yeah, it is. And the really cool thing is they did this with fewer compute units.
Wait a minute. So less compute units equals more power. I thought more was always better when it comes to tech specs.
Well, not always. Compute units are kind of like the engines that power your graphics.
Okay.
And AMD has basically made those engines way more efficient. So you get more power from each one.
Gotcha. So it's not just about cramming in more stuff. It's about making the stuff you have work smarter.
Exactly.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now, let's talk about ray tracing.
Yeah. I feel like every time I hear about new graphics cards, ray tracing is like the big buzzword. What's RDNA 4 doing differently when it comes to ray tracing?
Ray tracing is all about making light and reflections in games look super realistic.
Right.
And traditionally, it takes a ton of processing power to do that.
Yeah.
But with RDNA 4, AMD has figured out how to make ray tracing way faster and more efficient.
So I'm guessing that means games can look even more amazing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And without tanking your frame rate.
Yeah, nobody wants a slideshow instead of a game.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so ray tracing is getting a major upgrade.
Yeah.
What about AI? I feel like AI is everywhere these days.
Uh-huh.
It's like the new electricity or something.
Yeah, it really is everywhere.
What's happening with AI in these new graphics cards?
Yeah.
Like, are they smarter than my phone now?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
AMD has really gone all in on AI with RDNA 4. They've supercharged the AI processing power, like way beyond just making games look better. Which they do, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we're talking about AI that can like generate images in real time, power creative apps, you know, stuff that artists and designers use, and even change how we interact with games. It's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
I feel like we're living in the future, man.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so AI is a big deal for RDNA 4.
Yeah.
What about FSR 4? That was another thing that caught my eye. It sounds like it can make games look even better and run smoother, even if you don't have the latest and greatest hardware.
Yeah, FSR 4 is super cool.
So is this like magic? How does it work?
Well, it's not magic, it's AI. It's AMD's new AI-powered tech that basically upscales your games to higher resolutions. So even if you're not running your game at, say, 4K resolution natively, FSR 4 can make it look almost as good as if you were.
Okay, so it's like having a virtual graphics card boost.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
All thanks to some AI wizardry.
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing. Can't wait to see how that looks in action.
Yeah, it's going to change a lot of things, I think. Especially for gamers who maybe can't afford to constantly upgrade their hardware.
Right, so it's about making high-end gaming more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the competition for a minute. How do these new Radeon RX 9000 cards stack up against what Nvidia is offering? Like, who's winning the graphics card war?
Well, it's always a battle, right?
Always.
But I think AMD is really targeting that sweet spot for gamers with their pricing.
Okay, so how do the prices compare?
So the RX 9070 starts at $549,
Okay.
and the 9070 XT, which is slightly more powerful,
Okay.
is $599.
Okay, so that's a pretty noticeable difference compared to what Nvidia is asking for their comparable cards, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty big difference.
So it sounds like you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with these Radeon cards.
Definitely.
And on top of all that, they even gave us a sneak peek at this new game called Crimson Desert, which is like totally designed to show off what RDNA 4 and FSR4 can really do.
Yeah, it's going to be beautiful. They've said they're building it from the ground up to take full advantage of all these new features we've been talking about.
The graphics look insane. I'm already hyped to play it.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely going to be a showcase for what's possible with this new generation of hardware.
I'm sensing a theme here. AMD is all about pushing the boundaries, but also making sure everyone can come along for the ride.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to make this tech accessible to everyone, and not just for gaming, but for other stuff too. Like the AI capabilities in these cards could be huge for creative applications and all sorts of other things.
Right. It's not just about playing games. It's about empowering people to do more with technology.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was a great overview of the big picture, but let's dive a little deeper into the technical details. What exactly has AMD changed under the hood to make these cards so much faster and more powerful?
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
We'll get nerdy, but we'll keep it fun, I promise.
Deal. So where do you want to start?
Let's talk about those compute units you mentioned earlier. Those are like the building blocks of the GPU, right?
Exactly. Each compute unit is basically a mini processing center that handles all the complex calculations needed for graphics.
Okay, so they're like tiny little factories churning out awesome visuals. What has AMD done to supercharge these factories with RDNA 4?
Well, they've made a bunch of improvements, but one of the biggest is adding specialized AI accelerators to each compute unit.
AI accelerators. So it's like having a dedicated team of AI experts working inside each of those tiny factories.
Pretty much. These AI accelerators are specifically designed to handle AI tasks with incredible speed and efficiency.
So it's not just about making games look better, it's about making the whole system smarter and faster. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And it opens up a lot of possibilities for developers to do more with AI in games.
Okay, so they've got AI accelerators working their magic. What else have they changed?
They've also completely redesigned the ray tracing hardware, making it twice as fast as the previous generation.
Whoa, twice as fast. That's a huge jump.
It is. And it means you get more realistic lighting, reflections, and shadows in games, all without sacrificing performance.
So they're not just slapping ray tracing on as an afterthought.
Nope, they've made it a core part of the architecture this time.
Okay, that's impressive. What about memory? How have they optimized that?
They've also improved the way memory is handled within each compute unit. Think of it like streamlining the flow of materials within those factories we were talking about.
So everything is moving more smoothly and efficiently.
Exactly. And that translates to better performance overall.
Okay, so we've got these upgraded compute units with AI accelerators, faster ray tracing hardware, and more efficient memory management. But what about the bigger picture? How does the overall architecture of the graphics card fit into all of this?
Well, one of the most interesting things about RDNA 4 is that AMD has gone back to a simpler design.
Simpler.
Yeah, they're calling it monolithic, which means the entire GPU is on a single chip instead of being split into multiple smaller chips.
So instead of having multiple brains trying to coordinate with each other, they've got one unified brain controlling everything.
You got it. And that actually makes a big difference in terms of performance.
How so?
Well, the simpler design improves communication between different parts of the GPU and reduces latency. It's like having everyone in the same room instead of spread out across different buildings.
Okay, so that makes sense. And I remember you mentioning something called Infinity Cache earlier. What exactly is that, and how does it fit into all of this?
Oh yeah, Infinity Cache. It's a special type of memory that's super fast and sits right on the GPU chip.
Is it like RAM?
It is a type of RAM, but it's much faster than the system RAM in your computer. And it acts like a cheat sheet for the GPU, storing the data it needs most frequently so it can access it instantly.
So instead of having to go all the way to the main memory bank, it can grab what it needs right from its secret stash.
Exactly. And that really helps boost performance, especially in games with huge detailed worlds.
And they've kept the Infinity Cache for RDNA 4.
They have. And they've even improved it, making it even faster and more efficient.
Okay, so we have these supercharged compute units, a more efficient architecture, and this awesome Infinity Cache. But I'm sure our listeners are wondering about the actual specs. How many compute units are we talking about? And how fast can these cards go?
Well, the RX 9070 XT, which is their top-of-the-line card, has 64 compute units. The RX 9070 has 56.
Okay, and what about clock speeds?
These cards are designed to run incredibly fast. The boost clock speeds are approaching 3 gigahertz.
3 gigahertz. That sounds seriously fast. And what about memory? Can the memory keep up with those speeds?
Absolutely. Both cards come with 16 GB of GDDR6 memory. It's the latest and greatest standard.
So that's like a superhighway for data, making sure everything flows smoothly between the graphics card and the rest of the system.
You got it. It's all about speed and efficiency with these new cards.
Okay, so on paper, these cards sound amazing. But how does all this translate to real-world performance? Like, what kind of frame rates can we expect in actual games?
Well, according to AMD's own tests, the RX 9070 XT is 40% faster than the previous generation flagship card in games like Cyberpunk 2077.
40%, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a really impressive leap in performance, and it means you can crank up the settings, enjoy smoother frame rates, and really experience those demanding games the way they were meant to be played.
And what about ray tracing performance? You mentioned that they made some big improvements there too, right?
Yep, the RX 9070 XT is over twice as fast as its predecessor in games with ray tracing enabled.
So that confirms it. These cards can handle even the most demanding games with ray tracing turned on.
But what about the AI capabilities? Have we seen any real-world applications of that yet?
Yes, actually. AMD has demonstrated how the RX 9070 XT can be used for AI image generation, and it's significantly faster than competing GPUs.
So not only are these cards great for gaming, but they can also be used as powerful tools for creative work and AI development.
Exactly. It's a really versatile piece of hardware. Okay, so these new Radeon cards sound amazing, but let's get back to the core audience, gamers. How do they compare to the competition, specifically what Nvidia is offering?
That's the big question everyone wants answered, right?
For sure. It's the ultimate showdown.
Well, in terms of raw performance, the RX 9070 XT seems to be on par with or slightly better than Nvidia's RTX 4070 Ti in a lot of games.
Okay, so they're pretty neck and neck in terms of performance.
Yeah, it's a close race, but it's important to note that Nvidia has been in the ray tracing and AI game a bit longer, so their software features are a bit more mature at this point.
Right. They've had their DLSS technology, which is their own AI-powered upscaling solution, for a while now. How does AMD's new FSR4 compare to that?
It's still a bit early to say definitively, but early tests suggest that FSR4 is looking really good. It delivers impressive image quality and performance gains.
So it's a viable alternative to DLSS.
It definitely seems that way. We'll need more time to see how it stacks up against DLSS in a wider range of games.
Sounds like a battle for the ages. But there's one area where AMD seems to have a clear advantage.
Price.
Oh yeah, for sure. AMD is really targeting that mainstream market with their pricing. Remember, the RX 9070 starts at $549, and the RX 9070 XT is $599. That's a lot more affordable than comparable Nvidia cards.
So for gamers who are looking to upgrade their rigs without breaking the bank, AMD is offering a pretty compelling option here.
Definitely.
But beyond the specs and the benchmarks, what really excites me is the potential of these new cards to actually change the gaming landscape.
I agree. AMD has been talking about how RDNA 4 and the RX 9000 series are designed to be future-proof, capable of handling the next generation of games with all the bells and whistles.
It's like they're laying the foundation for a whole new era of gaming experiences.
It really feels that way.
And they've given us a glimpse of that future with Crimson Desert, which is being specifically developed to showcase the power of RDNA 4 and FSR4.
It's going to be really exciting to see what developers can do with all this new power and these new technologies. Speaking of new technologies, I'm curious about the more practical implications of all these AI capabilities. We've talked about AI image generation, but what other applications are there for gamers? Like, how could AI actually change the way we play games?
Well, we're just scratching the surface of what AI can do in gaming. We're already seeing AI being used to create more realistic and believable characters.
Right, like making them move and react more naturally.
Exactly. And AI can also enhance the physics in games, making everything feel more dynamic and realistic.
So it's not just about graphics, it's about creating a more believable and immersive experience overall.
Exactly. And one of the most exciting possibilities is using AI to generate dynamic game content in real time.
So instead of having a pre-scripted world, the game could actually adapt and change based on your actions and choices. That's mind-blowing.
It is. And it could lead to some really unique and unpredictable gaming experiences.
I've also heard about AI being used to personalize the difficulty in games. So instead of having just easy, medium, and hard settings, the game could actually adjust the difficulty on the fly to match your skill level.
That's right. Imagine a game that learns your playstyle and adapts in real time to provide the perfect level of challenge. That's the kind of personalized experience that AI could enable.
That would be awesome. But with all this talk about AI and how it could revolutionize gaming, are there any concerns about how it might affect the competitive landscape in esports? Like, could it give some players an unfair advantage?
That's a good question. It's definitely something to think about. It's possible that we'll see new rules and regulations emerge in esports as AI becomes more integrated into games.
Yeah, it's a whole new frontier, and it
Yeah,
would be interesting to see how it all plays out. But one thing is for sure, these advancements aren't just about pushing pixels. They're about pushing the boundaries of what's possible in gaming and creating new and exciting experiences for everyone.
absolutely. And it's an exciting time to be a part of it all.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about how AI is going to shape the future of gaming. Like, what are we even going to be playing in 5 or 10 years?
I know, right? It's hard to even imagine.
Okay, well, before we get too lost in the future, let's bring it back to the present and recap what we've learned about these new Radeon cards.
Sounds good.
So, for all our listeners out there who are thinking about upgrading their gaming rigs, why should they be excited about what AMD just announced?
Well, the bottom line is that AMD is offering a ton of performance at a really competitive price.
Okay, so you're saying they're not just trying to cater to the hardcore enthusiasts who are willing to spend a fortune on the latest and greatest.
Exactly. They're trying to make this next generation of gaming tech accessible to everyone.
And from what we've seen, they're not sacrificing performance to achieve that affordability.
Nope, not at all. These new cards are seriously fast. They're going toe-to-toe with what Nvidia is offering, but at a much lower price point.
And that's thanks in part to that monolithic design that keeps everything running smoothly and efficiently.
Yeah, that simpler design is a big deal.
It's like they took a step back and said, okay, how can we make this whole thing work better?
Exactly. And it's really paid off. They've managed to eliminate a lot of the bottlenecks that can slow things down, allowing for faster communication and data transfer within the GPU.
And then on top of all that, they've sprinkled in some serious AI magic.
Oh, yeah. AI is everywhere in these cards.
It feels like they're not just thinking about how to make games look better, they're thinking about how AI can fundamentally change the way we play games in the future.
Absolutely. We've talked about AI image generation, but there's so much more potential there. AI could be used to create smarter, more believable characters. It could enhance the physics, making everything feel more realistic and immersive.
And it could even lead to games that adapt and change in real time based on your actions and choices.
Imagine a game that's constantly evolving and surprising you.
That's the kind of thing that gets me really excited about the future of gaming.
Hmm.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. But before we wrap things up, any final thoughts for our listeners out there?
I'd just say this is a really exciting time to be a gamer. We're on the cusp of some major changes, and AMD is right there leading the charge with these new Radeon cards.
It feels like we're about to enter a whole new era of gaming.
It does, doesn't it?
So buckle up, everyone, and get ready for the ride. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.